Good evening. This is the second episode of the Retired Hillbilly podcast. My name is Lee Muncie. Disclaimer before we get started. The views expressed on this podcast are only the views of the presenter. Mine and only mine. They are not endorsed, approved, affiliated, or condoned by any other entity. View as is. Any dissenting views or of the facts presented may be communicated and possibly discussed in any future podcast. So tonight, as I try to figure out how to do this, I've kind of working on the format. The introduction you just heard. I'll talk about the topics for the podcast, some background information for those topics, my current thoughts, that are my thoughts, review any previous topic questions or concerns, and then the closing, particularly how to contact, and a reminder to find previous offerings and contact information. The topics will be current events, religion, history, military affairs, economics maybe, and aspects of pop culture. Yes, I'm a geek. I've always been one, probably always will be. Comics, movies, reading material, even a couple recommended movies or comics that are coming out. Current events. The soap opera, which is This World in the year 2026, continues. We are in a slight holding pattern in our battles with the Islamic Republic of Iran. I believe it'll probably go to a shooting war. We have a lot of military resources there. If you look online to see military flights, there are like dozens of them every single day, whether they fly through England, Spain, Italy, or Germany. It's happening. Now, having read The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump years ago, he is giving him every opportunity to try to negotiate something for everyone. But a religious entity, such as the religious leaders of Iran, do not think critically or even in a level-headed manner. Their world is to try to hold on until the 12th Imam comes back to earth and wipes all of us non-believers out. They want us either subjugated or dead. Either way is good with them. So what are we left to do? We've been at war with the Iran People's Islamic Republic ever since 1979 when they took over for the Shah of Iran. One of the reasons they said they took over for the Shah of Iran because the secret police were killing dozens of Iranians every year. 30,000 died in the past, or more have died in Iran over the past year, killed by their own leaders. The 18-year-old soccer player was executed. Teachers, students, moms, dads, parents, brothers, sisters, have all been executed for wanting basic God-given rights. Christian church, the Jewish church, even the Zoroastrians, which were in Persia before Muhammad came sweeping through in his conquest of the Middle East, are all hiding, afraid to practice their faiths. A couple of years ago, I had a conversation with a friend, coworker, and they said, "Why do we even care?" I said, "Well, here's the thing. They can come to the United States and open up churches in the name of Muhammad for Islam, but I don't see a Southern Baptist church anywhere in Iran." There's just something unfair about that, I think. All right. History. Let's talk a little bit about history. Tonight, I'm going to go briefly over one of the last battles of the American Revolution, which was fought in Kentucky. Then a non-set area of Virginia. No states, not even really a part of Virginia, though they claimed it, basically because of people like Daniel Boone. And at the end of the Revolution, despite the capitulation of Cornwallis's British Army at Yorktown, when they surrendered to General Washington and French forces in October 1781, there was no communication, there was no internet, there was no TV, there was no telegraph. It was by word of mouth. Battles raged on. There was fighting South Carolina and Georgia. We tried to press the British back to the Atlantic coast. West of the Alleghenies, the Appalachians, the British hoped to maintain a hold on the Great Lakes region through the assistance of Native American allies who tried to stop the colonial encroachment. This information is from the National Battlefield Trust, and it outlines the Battle of Blue Licks near Carlisle, Kentucky. In the second week of August 1789, Loyalist Captain Caldwell led a force over the Ohio River into Kentucky. His command consisted of men from his own unit, Butler's Rangers, augmented by Delaware, Huron, and Shawnee warriors. Caldwell proceeded undetected to Bryan Station outside of Lexington, arriving early on August 16th. The Rangers and the warriors surrounded the outpost. Before dawn the next morning, Caldwell's men opened fire on the fort, and they skirmished and fought throughout that day. Being in the fort, the colonial settlers were able to stop them, at least stop them from taking over the fort. There was little they could do to prevent the destruction of crops and livestock outside the station. And upon the approach of various colonial reinforcements on August 17th, Caldwell abandoned the siege and withdrew to the northeast. Mounted Kentucky militia from Fayette and Lincoln counties under Colonel John Todd set out in pursuit. They followed Caldwell's trail throughout August 18th, traveling about 40 miles before he called a halt for the night. Caldwell camped out in the bend of the Licking River near the lower Blue Licks. The area derived its name from the local spring where buffalo and deer came to lick the salt that protruded up through the earth. Todd resumed his march after the sunrise on August 19th. On a ridge above the Licking, his lead element spotted several warriors wade the river and head to the high ground on the north bank. As they disappeared, Todd pushed his men to a nearby ford and over the river. Once across, the militia quickly formed into three columns and prepared to attack. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Boone formed the left, Major Hugh McGarry the center, and Colonel Stephen Trigg held the right. Todd deployed a thin line of skirmishers and ordered an advance against an unseen enemy without scouting. They got within about 40 yards, slammed into the British line. Although the opposing sides were relatively evenly matched, Caldwell had about 200 men in position against 182 Kentuckians, the mythical high ground within military combat. With heavy fire on both sides, Boone's men drove back, Caldwell's right about 100 yards. With victory seemingly in sight, disaster struck. As Boone pushed one end of the line, warriors quickly swung around the other end and turned the Kentucky right flank. Trigg, along with Todd, both fell in quick succession. The loss of their officers, combined with the Braves pushing into the rear and threatening to cut off their line of retreat, caused the Kentuckians to panic and break in a mad dash for the river. Boone managed some sort of order for a brief period, but was eventually forced to retreat. At the ford along the Licking, a disorganized mob attempted to reach safety, but those Indian warriors were following close on their heels. Benjamin Netherland rallied a small group and ordered them to open fire. This volley deterred any further pursuit, and Caldwell's men gave up the chase. The remnants of Todd's command slowly trickled back to the settlements where Caldwell resumed his march to the Ohio. This battle, lasting only about 15 minutes, is the largest battle of the Revolutionary War fought in Kentucky and was a resounding British victory. They inflicted 100 casualties, approximately 54% of Todd's force. The brief engagement proved to be the last in America's struggle for independence, which ended 11 months later with the Treaty of Paris. It was, however, another in a series of battles fought by the young United States in their quest to gain control of Ohio. Indians in Illinois from the Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois from Native Americans. Today, the Blue Licks battlefield is part of the Kentucky State Park system. A museum now occupies the site. A mass grave containing remains of the Kentucky militia and a monument lay on the backside of the ridge, occupied by Caldwell at the inside of the battle. The Battle of Blue Licks is commemorated with a reenactment and a ceremony each year. I, along with the members of the Kentucky Society of Sons of the American Revolution, sponsor that commemoration. So around the 15th of August, that Saturday, I'll be the master of ceremonies for this year's celebration remembrance. Look it up if you want to know more about it. Okay, next topic, military. I've been researching relative numbers, especially since the Russians' invasion of the Ukraine. And one of the things that nags at the back of my head is the NATO partners, along with the United States, have pledged an amazing amount of military equipment to the Ukrainians' fight against the Russians. And that got me to thinking. After the Cold War, I know there were a drawdown of military resources in those countries. You hear the Germans saying we're going to send 200 Leopard 2 tanks. We hear France saying we're going to send equipment. We'll hear Britain say we're going to send tanks. But if you look at the numbers of military forces available, you see that China, Russia, the United States have over 3,000 main battle tanks. India has over 2,000. I think France has maybe 400. Germany has about 300. Great Britain has about 300. So when you hear them saying the United States will teach them, they move out of NATO, they're not providing that much in the first place. This information is available all the time. On the internet, you can get all kinds of information on relative military strength. At this point, if the United States withdraws support for NATO, I don't think it's going to be that big of a loss. They've been counting on the United States to back up their bravado against the Russians and others for years. The bottom line is they didn't offer any support for our battles in Iran because they don't have the resources to really do it. That's my opinion. So let's talk about pop culture. Like I said, I'm a geek. Always been a geek. I'm a triple threat, or not triple, a multiple threat when it comes to sci-fi conventions over the years. And I had my opinions on that. They're no longer fun. They're money grabbers. Used to be you'd go to a convention and you could sit with friends and talk, listen to people you wanted to listen to, see things you wanted to see, participate in things you wanted to do. And it didn't feel like it was a constant drain on your wallet. Today, it's different. But I do have some recommended sci-fi related things. Movies. A movie I would recommend that most people don't know about is the Buckaroo Banzai movie. Peter Weller, who later became RoboCop, and a noted actor, uh, John John Lithgow, Third Rock from the Sun, plays the bad guy. Jeff Goldblum plays a cowboy-wearing suit neurosurgeon who joins up with the Hong Kong Cavaliers, which is Buckaroo Banzai's rock and roll band. It's an eclectic movie, and you have to hold on and watch what's going on. Another one of my favorite movies, which I would recommend, is a ghost sci-fi time traveling movie about a baseball field called Field of Dreams. So it's another movie that's I have enjoyed very much over the years. And then a couple of comic books I recommend, though I tried to get out of the comic books and got pulled back in when a comic book shop opened up in Shelbyville last year, is the new relaunch of the Firestorm series and the relaunch of the Zatanna series. Firestorm is a high schooler who, in a nuclear accident, got fused with a Nobel Prize nuclear physicist who becomes a ghost in his own brain as he has his superpowers. And Zatanna is now being relaunched as the master mage of the DC universe. I don't know if you know, but there are two primary comic book companies. You've heard of Marvel with the Avengers and Captain America and Iron Man, and then DC with Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. So let's see what next. Had to close the door. Hear my wife moving dishes around and such. Religion. My last podcast, I told you the beginnings of my journey in trying to reconnect with my faith after my retirement. I accepted the Holy Spirit when I was 13 and lived a good life, but I fell away from the church. I did not attend the services for many years. When I became a parent, my wife took on most of those responsibilities, making sure that they went to church. She always invited me every week, but I didn't feel comfortable. She did a good job raising her kids in the church. She continues to be a good Christian woman, and I'm thankful for that. I tried to make sure that after church, the kids had a nice family meal, that we caught up on homework, that we talked and communicated. When I retired, I did my walkabout. I told you previously about how sad I was at some of the smaller churches that seemed to be dying, and the larger churches doing good things, but I didn't feel connected. So since then, I have found a home for a church where I feel comfortable, and I hope to grow and be what Christ wants me to be. But let me go back to comments I made about what's happening in the world. We have to live in the world. We have to be people who make money, provide for families and ourselves. We have to do the job. I used to get kidded, and I used to kid around at work that the 13th Amendment precludes chattel ownership of human beings as property. That means we're not slaves. We make choices. I tried to be a good employer. I showed up on time. I did what they asked me to do. I always got good reviews. I tried to help out, but I've always been critical. It seems like the stupid people are winning. Isn't that something? To be able to say, I think the stupid people are winning. So, in the final version of this, you'll get a title card at the beginning. You'll get a title card at the end. You may get a couple pictures of me at an SAR event or two. I know I've got one queued up. A few years ago, my son and I were able to go to Mount Vernon in Virginia and stand guard at the Washington Family Tomb for 15 minutes. That was just way cool, a once in a lifetime kind of thing. Last year, my wife and my son Samuel had traveled to Lexington and Concord for the 250th anniversary of the battles, and participated in the parade and the color guard in Concord. This year, I intend on being in Philadelphia on July 4th at Independence Hall for the reading of the Constitution. Those are bucket list things. And as a retiree that has some means to do so, my plan is to keep on going until the Battle of Yorktown and that last battle of Blue Licks 6 years from now. Please, if you would, like and try to sign up for this podcast. I'll try to make it a mix of those things such as current events, religion, history, military, economics, pop culture, and we can enjoy it, hopefully, together. If you would, send me an email. The email address will be on the title card. If you have any questions, make comments, feel free to do so. I'm still figuring this process out. We'll wear a better shirt this time, right? Some of these podcasts will take place outside, hopefully, with the activities I do between the Kentucky Historical Society, Shelby County Historical Society, Sons of the American Revolution, and other things. Have a good evening.